Coming up on Varsity Sports, the basketball season is ready to tip off, and we'll get you prepared for what promises to be an exciting season.
Who has a chance to repeat? Who will surprise? We'll give you a peek at our preseason power rankings.
Plus, hear from the coaches and players themselves. All that and more coming up on Varsity Sports. The high school hoop season is upon us. How's everybody doing? I'm Jay Elson. He's Jason Andera. And this, again, is Varsity Sports. Well, over the next 2 Wednesdays, we are going to take a long look at the respective seasons in North and South Dakota. This week, it's all about the ladies. We tip it off with North Dakota Class B girls games just getting underway. And while there are more questions than answers at this point, Jason, there isn't much doubt as to who the top team in the state is.
No, that honor definitely goes to Minot Bishop Ryan, which has gone 55-0 with a pair of state titles over the past 2 seasons. For more on the Lions, we bring in a guy that sees a lot of them, the sports editor of the Minot Daily News, Ryan Holmgren. Ryan, tell us what Bishop Ryan has back this year.
Well, yeah, they're in kind of an odd predicament this year. They lose 5 seniors, including 2 starters, but they have their top 2 players back in Hannah Stewart and Gabby Bull, and then they also have Maddie Wald and Cheyenne Schmidt, who are 2 more than capable guards. So they have 4 strong players back, but that's pretty much it. After that is a question mark. So they're going to try to build their depth, and that'll be the key to their success, I think. If they can do that, they'll certainly have a great shot at a 3rd straight state championship. And, you know, even if they don't, I think those top 4 players, particularly Stewart and Bull, will have a good chance to just carry the load for 1 more season. But if they want to be really strong again, they're going to need to develop a little bit of depth, and so that's what they're looking to do early in the season.
Ryan, when you've won as much as the Lions have over the past couple of seasons, what keeps you hungry and challenged?
Well, they do a good job of remaining level-headed. They don't talk about the winning streak or the state titles or anything like that. They are pretty good at just keeping their nose to the grindstone and working hard. They know they're going to get everyone's best shot, every single night out, because they do have that kind of aura about them of the 57 straight wins and the 2 straight state titles and a couple, a D1 and D2 player already signed on their team. So they know they're going to get everyone's best effort, and they know that that means they have to work that much harder, and they do a good job. And Julie Stewart, their coach, does a good job of kind of keeping them motivated and not letting them look too far down to, just the next one game at a time. The complete cliche coach speak, but that's what she does, and that's, I think, been a big key to success over the last few years.
All right, we are going to hear a little bit more from Ryan later on in the show, but for now, let's dig a little deeper into this class, Jason. And as we know, Bishop Ryan loaded again, but who are some of the other contenders in this class?
Well, you know what? These teams are tired of Bishop Ryan winning it every year, and they've been getting better and better, so I think the gap will be a little closer, even though Ryan is very seasoned. But look for teams like Shiloh Christian, a team that was ahead against Bishop Ryan in the finals last year in the 4th quarter. They've got some talent back with Mia Wilkinson, and of course the point guard Jay Two Bears averaged almost 5 assists per game. She's going to be a key component to Shiloh Christian. And then you look at Lakota Edmore. That is a team that's led by Fallon Frigge, a 3-time All-State selection. Finding the sidekick, some extra scoring for Frigge will be the challenge for that team, but they're right in the mix. And then North Star, a team that just lost 2 games last year. Yeah, they will definitely miss the scoring of Allie Heiser, but they do have Sarah Hagler back, a 20-point scorer. And then Dickinson Trinity, a 21-6 team that was extremely young last year, brings back a lot of components. Trinity could be in that mix later on in the year as well. Tough region for them.
I know there's a handful of other teams you're paying attention to already here early on. Maple Valley certainly one of them with that Riley Nudell factor. She's always going to keep that team in the mix.
Last year I had her and the Maple Valley in the top 5. Didn't quite have the supporting cast they needed, and I don't know if they do yet again this year, but definitely a team to watch out for.
All right, well, Class A featured a lot of young talent last season, and that should make for a pretty competitive field this winter. We'll take a closer look at that talent pool when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midcoast Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midcoast Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. It's our girls high school basketball preview show, and it's time to take a look at what could be the most competitive class in the state of North Dakota this winter. Sarah Jacobson carried Shanley to the Class A crown last season, and that's bad news for the rest of the state.
Motivation isn't too hard. We're a really competitive group, so each day we just come in and we try to do the best that we can and get better day by day.
I think, you know, the big thing that helped us last year was we were humble. We didn't expect to be as good as we were, and I think this year we have that same level of humbleness, and I think that's going to help us on our basketball season this year. And I mean, we're competitive, like Sarah said. You know, we push each other every day to get better and to be our best. And I mean, everyone's fighting for a spot, which in the long run will help us with, you know, mental toughness and really digging deep and seeing who wants it most.
You know, it's been really exciting. The atmosphere and energy has been really high and positive, and I think everybody out here is just excited to get going again and get in the flow of basketball.
Well, Minot worked their way up the ladder in the state tournament last March, where they finished runner-up to Shanley, and they too returned some key contributors. For more on the Majettes, we bring back Ryan Holmgren. Ryan, which key players are back for the Majettes this season?
Minot loses just one senior, so they've got almost everyone coming back, led by Cassie Aspig, now junior forward, and she was All-State last year during her sophomore campaign. Averaged 18.3 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 3 blocks a game. Those blocks led the West region, so she will certainly be a force to be reckoned with this year, and I would imagine she'll start getting some D1 looks from recruits. And then McHill and Sierra Dudenheffer, senior twins, they are just good all-around players. They've played basically since they were freshmen, and both of them had suffered knee injuries and came back strong last year, and we're good starters for them. And then Sophie Bankson, their point guard, she averaged 3.8 assists last year, and that was near the top of the West region. And then Brooke Suko was kind of their sixth man last year, and a really good spark off the bench. So I think she'll probably step into the starting lineup, and I imagine she'll really step up for them.
That again is Ryan Holmgren from the Minot Daily News. All right, moving on to Bismarck now. Century went 21-4 in its quest for a third straight Class A championship last season, but set up for a disappointing fifth-place finish at the state tournament. Now, head coach Ron Metz is hoping to see his Patriots rebound with the help from one of the state's top performers, Jordan Josert, as well as a host of other top-notch contributors.
Well, our leaders on the team this year are going to be, we have 3 seniors, Jordan Josart, Jaden Schutte, and Cassidy Wilhelm. They all saw a lot of time last year for us, and they're really doing a great job this year so far of taking control of things, running drills, making sure communication works, things like that.
Actually, a lot of us played last year, so I think that helps with like varsity experience because we know like the flow of the game and how things work. So I think that that's an advantage.
Our size is kind of a challenge. We're all pretty small and all kind of the same size, so we're really going to have to work hard on boxing out and rebounding.
Personally, I mean, I want to get back to that state championship game, and obviously I want to bring it home for our senior year. I think that'd be really awesome, but just a successful season.
Well, with all that in mind, Janny, let's take a look at your preseason power rankings for Class A girls in North Dakota.
Really tough to compile this list. One thing I didn't struggle with was putting Shanley at #1. This is a team that should control this class most of the season, although Minot showed a lot in that tournament run last year, and they do have Cassie Aspig back. A huge part of that team last year is going to be the main contributor for the Majettes this year. Century, always good. They're going to be solid once again. Davies is the team out east. I think that could make a run if anybody could. And it's Alexis Clabo, really, 14 points per game that leads the way for Davies this season. And you can't count out West Fargo. I know some people are counting them out this year with so many starters lost. But Akili Moten, one of the best players, she was hurt most of last year as a freshman, will come back and be one of the best players in the state, in my opinion. And watch out for Cassidy Nelson. That's a name to be looking for as well to be a contributor for the Packers.
Any teams outside of your top 5 here that people should keep an eye on going forward?
I definitely think there are a couple. I think Fargo South returns 2 of the top scorers. Yeah, I know they had a losing record last year, but that's a team on the upswing. They're going to surprise some people. And Grand Forks Red River, a lot of people have them in the top 2 or 3 out east. I think they're just outside of the top 5 in the state. And Bismarck, always a team to watch out for. So many good players in that program. They're all coming up to replace some starters, but some talent nonetheless.
All right, well, that's a look at the preseason picture in North Dakota girls basketball. And up next, we shift the spotlight to South Dakota. You're watching Varsity Sports.
Varsity Sports on Midcoast Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midcoast Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back. Well, we continue our preseason tour of girls high school basketball with South Dakota Class B. Last season, Warner came into the season #1 and marched its way to a 2nd consecutive Class B title. Now, the Monarchs will be in the conversation again this season, but the gap is certainly closed between them and the rest of the state.
Yeah, you know, Warner pretty much walked into the season and did what they were supposed to do, which is not easy to do, by the way. And they did it in volleyball again, their 3rd title in a row in volleyball. So don't count them out in basketball. I just think some of these B schools have probably overtaken them. They used to be able to line up 3 or 4 6-footers in that front court. This year, they're going to be leaning heavily on Ashley Roselle down low, but don't have that depth on the the front court like they were used to. So I've got Warner down at #4, maybe a little low for some people, but I think they're going to have trouble staying up to that #1 standard. That #1 standard I did give to Sully Buttes. Just the 2 losses last year. Bring back Chloe Lamb, who really probably is the best player in this entire class. So watch out for them. And you see the other names on this list. Hanson had a great year last year. Kennedy Cheeseman back. Ethan, a new coach, and Tom Young, who had so many good seasons with Mitchell Christian back in the day. And I also have Sanborn Central. Yeah, they lost a couple of their frontline players as well, but Maya Sellen coming back, maybe one of the biggest, the best players in the front court back in this top 5.
Anybody else on your radar, teams that weren't quite ready at this point to crack the top 5?
You know, DeSmet had a few key wins last year over some very good programs. Again, a team that lost a couple of those seniors, but with Riley Ostis back and a couple other ingredients, I think they could be a team right on the outside looking in. Lemon, Summit, Highmore Herald, all teams to watch out for as well.
All right, going to be an interesting season in Class B. Certainly appears a little bit more wide open than it's been the last couple of years.
It's going to be a fun year in Class B, that's for sure.
Well, St. Thomas More has built a full-fledged Class A powerhouse. We'll talk about the Cavaliers' chances of making another championship run next.
Varsity Sports on Midcoast Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midcoast Sports Network is presented by Shields.
St. Thomas More dominated last year and ultimately captured its 3rd Class A title in 4 years. Can they do it again? Head coach Brandon Candelin says that depends on how his team handles the challenge of managing those high expectations.
I think the success is just built upon itself. We are a very focused group, and certainly with what we've accomplished the last couple of years, the younger groups that are coming back, they know what it takes, and they're willing to work hard after it. And so each year we focus on maybe some things that we didn't do so well the previous year, and those are things that we want to work on the most. And you know, some of the times there are little things that we've got to change and fine-tune, and sometimes there might be a major change in the offense and the personnel that we have.
You know, I think we lost a lot of key players, but I also think we can fill those positions. You know, we got a lot of young talent coming up, and I believe that, you know, we had some experience from last year too, so that will really help us and, you know, persevere through this year.
And as we get into Jandy's preseason Class A power rankings, Cavaliers picking up right where they left off, an easy choice for #1.
Yeah, a very easy choice. There is a huge gap. In fact, if St. Thomas More was playing in AA right now, I'm not so sure they wouldn't be, if not one, #2 in AA.
Oh,
they are that good. A couple of D1 players on their team. Alexis Swedlund has done such a great job. And the nice thing about St. Thomas More, so much depth from their young girls coming up and filling the spots. So definitely the #1 team. They blew teams out in the state tournament last year.
Yeah, it wasn't even close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something you just don't see very often. And once again, a huge gap. But there are a couple other teams to talk about. Clark Willow Lake, I've got at #2. Michaela Huber is back. She's done a good job with a lot of playing time over the last 3 seasons. So she'll be ready for this season. Only 4 losses on the year for Clark Willow Lake. A couple of players to watch. Webster will be right in the mix. You got to look at Mount Vernon Plankinton with 2 big 6-footers in the middle with Megan Baltzma and Michaela Karst. And Sioux Valley, a team that lost just 4 games last year, had a lot of sophomores who got playing time, will be juniors this year. So that's a team definitely on the move.
But it is St. Thomas More's to lose.
It's going to be awfully tough to knock them off this year. Never say never in high school sports.
Of course not, yeah. All right, well, there's going to be a very different look at Sioux Falls, Washington this season, but the goals remain the same. We'll look at how the Warriors factor into the Class AA conversation right after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
For the past 7 years, Sioux Falls, Washington has arguably been the most consistent program in Class AA hoops. The Warriors claimed 3 state titles in that span, the last of which marked the end to Nate Malchow's run as head coach.
Well, with Malchow now serving as the school's activities director, the Warriors are now under the direction of Jamie Parrish. It's his job to figure out how to replace all 5 starters from last year's championship team.
To be honest with you, Nate and I have shared things for 10 or 15 years as head coaches, so we did a lot of things similar already. It was very ironic as we sat in the coach's office with Larry and Brett Schleckaway. I would tell them a drill that I wanted to do, and they would give me a different name for it. And that happened on about 6 or 7 occasions. There's a lot of overlap already. One thing that I like to do maybe just a little bit more is we're going to try to increase that tempo. But they weren't a walk-it-up team before either, so you might not even notice.
We're smaller. We don't have a lot of bigs, but we have good shooters, so that's going to be good for our team.
Well, I'm really excited. We have a lot of girls stepping up to new positions this year, and it'll be exciting. We had 7 seniors graduate, but we're ready to go.
Well, Washington may be the defending champs, but they're not necessarily the favorites. With a bulk of its players back from last year's 17-win team, that honor goes to Kent Colesrud and the Sioux Falls O'Gorman Knights.
Certainly seen improvement. We know it's early season. We know we have a lot of things to work on. We know we got to get better every single game, every single practice. But it's a group that has high expectations and is really motivated to practice hard and to improve.
We knew going into this season during the summer we wanted to be the top team, and we wanted to be the top team at the end of the year, so it won't change anything we would think about.
Our expectations are high. Obviously, the state, title is our goal, but, we have to work really hard every practice, never slack and to get that.
All right, let's take a look at Jandy's AA preseason power rankings here. O'Gorman, #1. Jason, we heard from Kent there. What, in your eyes, makes this team worthy of this distinction?
Well, first of all, a lot of good teams in AA this year. O'Gorman, however, does have the most returning starters from a team that was successful last year. And usually, that's what us media types go for in the preseason. You have to go on who's coming back, and you've got Jessica Maris back, you've got Daly Steen back, you've got some up-and-coming young players for O'Gorman. They've got all the ingredients. Now, Washington, on the other hand, has the pedigree of winning championships. It's going to be a little bit different. I mean, I know they'll give me the speech, everything's going to be the same, but anytime you switch head coaches, even the little nuances change, everything changes. Yeah. And especially when you've got 7 seniors who have gone on from last year's championship team and replacing the entire starting lineup, things are going to change. But I do want to say that Washington will be good. Some people might dismiss them a little farther down the ladder than I have. But I think it's going to be between Washington, O'Gorman, Lincoln. Those 3 teams are all very good right at the top.
Well, and you can't forget, yes, you're changing a lot of players, and that's difficult to do for anybody. But Jamie Parrish is a very accomplished basketball coach. This is a guy that's not inexperienced. They're not bringing him off the street. This is a guy who knows what he's doing.
Oh, definitely knows what he's doing. In fact, I talked to him, and he said, you know what? People think this is a huge change for me. Not so much. I mean, he won a state title with Vermilion. He's been a head coach before. He's been an assistant coach. He's not new to the school. He's been an assistant coach with the boys team at Sioux Falls, Washington. So not a huge transition. They've got a great coach in Jamie Paris. They've got a great set of assistant coaches who are all intact from last year's team. So that being said, not a huge change for Washington, although, like I said, anytime you're changing that many players and you're changing that top head coach, there's going to be some feeling out to see how Washington
just
does.
from the fact of how a practice is run and how things,
Yes.
you know, I mean, it's not going to be exactly like it was under Nate Melchow, but no two coaches are exactly the same. So, I mean, some of that's going to be expected, but yeah, it's just a lot of it's going to have to do with chemistry, both on the floor and between the bench and the floor. And once they get that figured out, I think they'll be fine.
And once you also have to take into consideration they're actually the players. And Washington has plenty of players who've been waiting in the wings for their chance. They've got Sydney Arrington, maybe with the most dominant inside force in all of AA. So they'll be fine as far as that goes. Now, Washington is not the only team in this class, however. We have O'Gorman pegged at #1 because they've got so much talent coming back. Lincoln, we've barely even touched the surface with how good they could be now with their second-year head coach, Matt Daly, and Ellie Brecht, who probably is the best single wing player that we have in the state. And then you've got Roosevelt with their own new coach.
Yeah, another coaching coach there.
And Tag and Larson, maybe the top individual player in the entire class, and who knows what they could turn into by March. I don't think they'll be good right off the bat in December and maybe early January, but that team could develop into a contender. And then I've also got Rapid City Stevens at #5. I mean, this is a team that made a run to the state tournament last year. They've got Marissa Heikert back, a 6'2" inside player who led the team in rebounding last year. So another possibility for a team that could make some noise coming down later in the year.
With all the changes, it's certainly going to be an interesting season in Class AA. I don't think anybody expects otherwise. You know, obviously you have the talent and established with what we have at O'Gorman, and then Washington, Roosevelt.
Yeah.
All that is so much different. Of course, Mitchell without Macy Miller, that's
Mitchell,
another interesting story.
Here with Sydney Palmer. Brookings could be an upstart team. A lot of teams to watch for.
All right, well, good luck to all of the teams this season across North and South Dakota. That is our time for this week. For Jason Andera, I'm Jay Elson. Remember to tune in again next week as we preview the boys' basketball seasons in the Dakotas.